So let's go into this Virginia Giuffre person. How did she first enter into the scene in this whole Jeffrey Epstein saga? Well, what you learn is that she is the central figure of this Jeffrey Epstein story. In 2011, the Daily Mail sat down with Virginia and told her story about how she met Prince Andrew in 2001 when she was 17 years old. According to Virginia, she was taken by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to the United Kingdom as part of this kind of multiple country tour that they were doing, or multiple country kind of jaunt that they were doing on his private jet. She was asked to go along with them. She did. She went to the UK. She's 17 years old. She meets Prince Andrew in the UK. And in this article, it clearly states they went out to some club. They came back. She personally asks for a picture from him. I want to read that section to you because I think it's an important part of the article.
I also just want to point out, too, that Virginia was paid for that article. She was paid for her story, and she was also paid separately for the image that she provided of herself with Prince Andrew.
Exactly.
And that's always problematic.
I agree. So this story comes out in, like I said, 2011. And in it, there is a section that I thought was kind of important. This is the section. And it says the following. This is the image that she was paid for. She was paid, and by some estimations, $120,000 to $140,000 for this story. It creates an incentive, as Adriana says, to basically tell these kinds of stories. That is the problem when you pay for stories. In the article, it says this. This is what Virginia Giuffre says. All of us went upstairs. This is basically her, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrews. All of us went upstairs, and I asked Jeffrey to snap a picture of me with the prince. I wanted something to show my mom. Ghislaine and Jeffrey left us after that, and later Andrew left. The article goes on, this from the reporter's perspective. There is no suggestion that there was any sexual contact between Virginia and Andrew, or that Andrew knew that Epstein paid her to have sex with his friends. Okay? So it's pretty clear in there, in 2011 article, that she did not have, at that time she was claiming that she did not have sex with Prince Andrew.
That was not the narrative she was pushing.
No, exactly. She claims that she also met him a couple months later in New York when she was 17 years old. She met him about a year later after that when she was 18 years old. Now, I should say this. When she met Prince Andrew in 2001, she was 17 years old. The age of consent in the UK is 16 years old. When she met Prince Andrew a couple months later, according to her, when she met Prince Andrew at Jeffrey Epstein's house in New York, she was 17 years old. The age of consent in New York City was 17 years old. She met them a year. She claims she met Prince Andrew a year later on Epstein Island, which is in the Virgin Islands, which the age of consent was 16 years old. And she was 18 years old at that time. Now, once again, if they ended up having sexual relations, he would have been about 40 to 41 years old. She would have been about 17 years old. In every instance that she met him, she was of the age of consent. Now, if there was some 40-year-old man coming for my daughter at that age, we would have a serious problem.
Very serious problem.
Okay.
I am not okay with that.
Obviously. It's
not illegal, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean I'm going to be okay with it.
But you also had Jerry Seinfeld was going out with a girl when she was 17. I think he was 39 or 40 years old when he... Shoshana Lonstein or whatever that was.
Yeah, I remember the boobs.
Yeah. Well, she was 17 years old. It was legal. It was controversial, but it was legal. Now, that said, having this major age gap, I don't know if that is necessarily something that should become this national crisis to where it saturates every news media outlet and it has no implications towards there being a rampant child sex trafficking ring to the global elites. Okay, that is not what we're seeing here with this story. So she claims in this 2011 article that she did not have sex with Prince Andrew. She ends up working with this writer of the Daily Mail, and the writer ends up helping her look for and shop around a book idea. And as anyone that has been in kind of shopping around a book, when you're doing something like this in regards to sex trafficking, you need to be as salacious as possible. That's going to sell books. That's going to get somebody to sign on to, give you an advance, what have you. Sometime between then and years later, it went from, I didn't have sex with Prince Andrew, to Jeffrey Epstein trafficked me to Prince Andrew. This is Virginia Giuffre talking about being trafficked by Jeffrey to the American press.
First time in London, I was so young. Ghislaine woke me up in the morning and said, "You're going to meet a prince today." I didn't know at that point that I was going to be trafficked to that prince. And then that night, Prince Andrew came to her house in London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, "Let's dance together." And I was like, okay. And we leave Club Tramp, and I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Jeffrey. And Ghislaine said, "He's coming back to the house, and I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein." I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that even royalty were involved.
So, once again, when she met him at first, she was born in 1983. She was 17 years old when she met him, of the age of consent in the UK. And every other time she met him, she claims she met him 3 times in total. Each time where they were, she was the age of consent. Okay. Now, I do think that they are going to end up getting Prince Andrew somehow associated with a sex crime here. There are certain laws that it doesn't matter if you're an age of consent if there is a power differential. I think they're going to need a scalp on this. I've seen this happen before. We saw it happen in the Sound of Freedom, a story that we worked on with the people in Colombia that were associated with that story. It was basically, I don't want to go into the details of that. You guys know, anyone that's listened to our show, if you want to hear it, go listen to our episode, our series on that. And it's called Con Inc. But ultimately, you see the way once these stories get big enough, law enforcement is incentivized to have a scalp and to put someone in jail for a sex crime. And so I do think they're going to find a way to get Prince Andrew on something like this because of the age differential, regardless of whether she was the age of consent.
Now, he did respond to Virginia's accusations, and I think that it's important that we play that.
This is what Prince Andrew had to say about that.
July of this year, Epstein was arrested on charges of sex trafficking and abusing dozens of underage girls. One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001. She says she dined with you, danced with you at Tramp nightclub in London. She went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell, your friend. Your response?
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
She says she met you in 2001. She dined with you. She danced with you. You bought her drinks. You were in Tramp nightclub in London. And she went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Didn't happen.
Okay, so he goes on from there, and he denies ever meeting her. The problem with that, of course, is that there is a picture of them together. Now, you go to any celebrity and you show a picture of a celebrity. I have pictures of myself with celebrities. They may or may not remember us taking those pictures. So I don't necessarily, but the way that he handled that interview was pretty universally panned. And there was claims that he basically was not telling the truth. Now, whether he slept with Virginia Giuffre, and she said they're Virginia Roberts, she ended up getting married, so it's Virginia Roberts Giuffre. Whether they slept together or not, we will never know. She committed suicide, and he claims that they did not ever have sex together. So will there ever be evidence? I don't think there will ever be evidence that comes forward that definitively says that they slept together. At the end of the day, I want to reiterate here, every time that they met, and that's according to Virginia's timeline, she was of the age of consent. She also initially said that they didn't sleep together. That story changed over time.
Once she wanted to get a book deal.
So let's look at Virginia Giuffre's background, okay? And this is according to her, according to depositions that have been out there, according to various investigative journalists that have done some pretty serious work on this. And I want to give a shout out to one of these investigative journalists. His name is Jay Breacher. He's done a great podcast on Virginia Giuffre that I'll include in the show notes that you guys should go check out. So she, at a young age, Virginia claims that her father molested her. And when I say young age, I want to say like in her early teens. She was molested by her father, according to her, and that her father shared her with somebody else. And so this is kind of how her story, this kind of sad story of Virginia starts off from her perspective. She ends up getting involved in alcohol, she ends up getting involved in drugs, and she ends up getting involved in prostitution. She ends up going also into kind of foster care for a while, and at some point she accuses, when she's 14 years old, accuses two boys of raping her. She reports that to the police. The police do an investigation on that, and they interview people they interview the boys, they interview other people that were kind of around at that time, and the claim was that it was not, according to the boys and according to witnesses, it was consensual, it was not rape, and that there were other kind of sexual acts involved with Virginia at that time that were consensual. So law enforcement looked at the entire case, they looked at the evidence, they looked at the interviews that they did, and they decided to not move forward with it because it was either not credible or they did not have enough information to move forward with charges against these boys. But you have this early instance when she's 14 years old of claiming this and this big hullabaloo happening because of that. And she no doubt felt the power of that kind of an accusation and how it could make things move. I want to play this brief clip from this Jay Breacher, investigative journalist. He did an interview with a friend of Virginia's that I thought was pretty telling. Let's play this. This is from Jay Breacher's podcast, Victim or Villain, The Shocking Truth About Virginia Giuffre.
By the end of the 1990s, Virginia was no longer simply a troubled teenager bouncing between adults and institutions. She was a young woman with a documented history of instability, substance abuse, false accusations, prostitution, and at least one major allegation that the state declined to prosecute on credibility grounds. She was also, by multiple accounts, charismatic, sexualized in presentation, and already learning the power of narrative, the power of attention, the power of being the person in the room whose story takes up all the oxygen. Philip Gaderion was one of Virginia's former friends, whom she dated when they were both in their late teens. The following is an excerpt from an audio recording of him talking to me about Virginia when I interviewed him.
I met Virginia first when we were about 14 or 15 years old, and was in a little rehab for juvenile adolescents in Lake Worth, Florida. At that time, we messed around in rehab, and when I first met her, she's always been a very sexual girl. Like, anything she does, like just walking and talking, she's sexual about her eyes. She'll flirt with you. Like, she knew what she was doing, too. Like, it's like she used that as her advantage. She would make people melt. In groups, she talked about sexual things, and there was just some sad stuff. She was pretty much taking advantage, I'll say that, I won't go into detail, and that she was pretty much exploited. So in that way, she learned at a young age what she had and how to use it, how to manipulate it, how to connive, And she loved to have sex. She loved to use sex as her weapon. She would love to here. Two people go over, she loved she would like anything. She was down for whatever, bro. Nympho. It wasn't so much as a nympho. She had to have it all the time. It was more of like she liked different dudes and she liked to try different. She just liked to have multiple sexual partners, I guess. Virginia knows me real well, and so does her boyfriend Anthony Figueroa at the time. and I was selling him some weed, and she was there, and we were just talking. She said, "Hey, I got a billionaire," and I said, "Yeah, right." Like, like we get millionaires all the time because we're from Palm Beach, you know. I know a lot of strippers and all kinds of girls, so I didn't believe her at first, and then she came out and showed me a nice amount of money, and I started believing it.
So there you have it. And it goes on from there. I would suggest if you're interested in digging deeper into her story, I would go to check out that. But it's according to this prior friend of hers that she was sexual and she used sex to get what she wanted. Now the interesting thing is, and this is where things start to come to why is this story being talked about today? When she was, let's see, what year was this? This was around 2000 and 2001. Her father and her reconnect because her father has a job and can get her a job at this facility. What facility was that? Mar-a-Lago. Her father worked at Mar-a-Lago as a maintenance person and ends up getting her a job there. I want to say it's like reception or something along those lines. Somehow through this job, she meets Jeffrey Epstein, and she becomes a masseuse of his. This kind of aligns with some of the things that Trump has said about Jeffrey Epstein in regards to their falling out. There's been multiple kind of reasons as to why him and Jeffrey Epstein fell out. They've known each other, I want to say since the late 80s. They both lived in that area of Palm Beach. Jeffrey Epstein was a money guy, and they kind of ran in these kind of same social circles. And Trump at one point, I guess, blamed or said that he was upset with Jeffrey Epstein because he kept plucking staff from him. There was also a real estate deal that they got in a bidding war with. And then in another story, apparently Jeffrey Epstein made a sexual advance to someone's daughter that was a member at his club, and that's when he banned him from the club. Those are the three stories as to why they ended up not being friends anymore. And then at some point, I believe that Donald Trump spoke to law enforcement. And Jeffrey Epstein, for the years following his legal troubles with the police force in South Florida, he blamed Trump for those legal issues, and we will get into that in a little bit. But somehow Virginia meets Jeffrey Epstein via her job at Mar-a-Lago. She becomes his masseuse. At some point, she ends up getting actually engaged to another man, and they move in together. And that goes south because she meets a drug dealer. She ends up kicking out her fiancé, and she goes back into prostitution. And she also occasionally goes back to Jeffrey Epstein and makes money via Jeffrey Epstein through massaging. At some point, she decides she's going to be a recruiter for him and bring other people in. And according to various sources, you can either, from Jeffrey Epstein or from various court documents, she was told, and from some of the witnesses associated with this and some of the people that went to his house to massage him, that they were told by Virginia to say that they were 18 years or older, that it was a known thing with all of these people that went there that they were supposed to be 18 and over, and that they in instances where they were under 18 they lied. She apparently was using various sources to connect with these girls in high schools, in strip clubs. Some of them had tattoos. Some of them because they worked at a strip club, they were assumed to be older than 18 years old. This is kind of, once again, these are per depositions and per interviews. Obviously, if you are going to dance with the devil like Jeffrey Epstein was doing, you're going to pay the price. But you have to put everything in perspective here and how this all went down. So this ends up being her thing. She ends up being kind of a masseuse pimp. And bringing these women to him. And I believe some of these women also brought other women. So it was this kind of a thing where if you could make a quick buck off of Jeffrey Epstein by going there and getting a couple $100 for a massage, you would maybe go there and just, massage him in your underwear or that kind of a thing. But that was kind of the setup there. And this after this point, she ended up doing the traveling with him. This is when she kind of met Prince Andrew. So this is the credibility of this woman. This woman who's claiming to be a victim, who claimed to be trafficked, was a trafficker to Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, she was the one that was finding masseuses that were involved in sexual acts with this man. But her credibility was so bad that they couldn't use her in future cases. Like when they had a case against Ghislaine Maxwell, they could not use her because her credibility was so bad.
Yeah, they didn't have her testify.
They didn't have her testify because Ghislaine was being prosecuted for the very thing that Virginia Giuffre was allegedly involved in. And I don't think there's any, kind of debate or controversy over this. This was kind of things that were said in depositions and said in statements. So this is the woman that's at the center of everything that's going on with Jeffrey Epstein and everything that is going on with Prince Andrew.
She had she has a history of changing her story. By the way, famously, she did that to Alan Dershowitz.
Yes, and this
is a big one.
This is a big one.
This is a big one.
This kind of gives you an idea of her, of the ability for her to create these fictional scenarios. This is her accusing Jeffrey Epstein of trafficking her to Alan Dershowitz. I want to play a quick video of that, and then you'll see what turned out of this.
I was with Alan Dershowitz multiple times. At least 6 that I can remember. Well, I was trafficked to Alan Dershowitz from Epstein. Epstein made me, essentially forced me to have sex with him.
I was never, ever anywhere near her at any time. She's making the whole thing up. She is a categorical liar. I can prove categorically by documentary and other evidence that I couldn't have been in the places she said I was at the time. They accuse me of the most horrendous crime. I defend myself, and they sue me for defamation, but they made a mistake because now they have to be deposed. I have to be deposed. I am happy to have this out in a court of law. They will be proved, all of them, to be categorically lying and making up this story, and it will be a terrible thing for rape victims. They have put rape victims in a terrible position because when I unequivocally prove that they sat down and made this all up, tragically, it will hurt real rape victims.
Well, a woman who claimed to have been sexually trafficked to attorney Alan Dershowitz now says she may have made a mistake in accusing him.
Virginia Giuffre, she alleged that financier Jeffrey Epstein trafficked her to Mr. Dershowitz between 2000 and 2002. This week, though, she dropped claims against Mr. Dershowitz, saying that she was young at the time that she was trafficked by Epstein in a very stressful and traumatic environment.
She said, I have long believed that I was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to Alan Dershowitz. I now recognize I may have made a mistake in identifying Mr. Dershowitz. This litigation has been very stressful and burdensome on me and my family. We believe it is time to bring it to an end and move on with our lives.
Well, I have said from the beginning I had never heard of this woman. She was a complete and total stranger, and obviously she now admits that she may have misidentified me, confused me with someone else. Well, she certainly put me through a hell of an 8 years making an accusation. The accusation is categorically, totally false.
So there you have it. She went from, I was trafficked to him at least 6 times, to maybe I misidentified him.
6 times? Six times to now, wrong guy?
So this is the credibility of this woman. This is the woman that is at the central of this Jeffrey Epstein story. This is the woman that's at the central of Prince Andrew's story. And she had to retract her statement to Alan Dershowitz.